And welcome to Codebase Alpha, the stream which is in orbit currently around the black hole Cygnus X1 and broadcasting to you from just outside the event horizon. And today we're going to be looking at creating an Alexa skill, and this Alexa skill is going to be closely tied in with the DevChatter DevStreams project, which if you have been or are still on the DevChatter stream at the moment, then that's we're going to be tying in with that, and hopefully a little later on we'll be putting in a PR to include the Alexa chat feature. So let's get some background music going. Let's have a look what we got here. Okay, so let's just shut this down. So today, as I said, we're going to be looking at creating an Alexa skill, and on the screen at the moment you should see a basic diagram of how the Alexa skill system actually works. So what we've got here is your Echo device, which is what you speak into. So you as the user speak into your Echo device. That speech is fed up into Amazon's cloud, where their speech recognition and machine learning technologies take a look at that and analyze it and pass a request then to a service which we're going to write. I'm just going to turn that music down slightly, it's a bit loud. Okay, it's better. Yes, so we're going to write this service and we're going to then post a response back to the Amazon website, and there that speech will be rendered and fed back to the Amazon Echo. At the same time, some Amazon Echo devices and other Alexa empowered devices do have these things called cards, which are basically visual, textual or image output, and we're going to be including that kind of thing as well. We may not get to it this evening, but the plan is to try and support at least the basic features of your Amazon Echo. We're probably not going to be looking too closely at the audio players and things like that. So we're going to concentrate on the text to speech kind of idea. And the idea is that we'll be able to say to our Echoes, "Hey Alexa, when is DevChatter streaming next?" And we'll get a response, which hopefully will make sense. Obviously, in our initial piece of work that we do here, we're just going to kind of have some basic responses. They're going to be kind of hard-coded responses, and then when we link into the database that DevChatter is building on his website, we'll be able to get real data out of that. So that's the plan. Okay, so what have I done so far? I did a little bit of preparation before the stream started, and the basic thing I've done is actually sign up for Azure. So I've got a free Azure account, and this is so we can host our web service up in Azure. And I've also signed up on the Amazon developer website. So we have all that kind of ready for us. I also, let's just shrink this down. I also created a web API project. So if you've been following me in the first 3 episodes of Codebase Alpha, we created a web API during those streams, and we kind of secured it with JWT bearer tokens. This is simply an out-of-the-box web API project, so we haven't done anything to it other than I've set up some publishing profile to push it up to Azure. So that's all ready, and it's actually working. So we've got just a simple controller in here at the moment, the value controller, which is what comes with the template, and it's simply if you can see here, you pass in an ID, and it just basically returns the word value. You can post in values, and it returns an array of values, and there's various other things here which we're not really going to be looking at. We're not that interested in. So this is what we're going to use. So the first thing I want to do really is get Swagger into this project. Just if you excuse me 1 second while I adjust this microphone once more. Okay, I hope everyone can hear me okay, and that the audio is reasonable quality. If you can't hear me or there's any audio problems, could someone shout out in chat please if there's anyone out there who's watching at the moment? That'd be very, very helpful. As I was saying, what we're going to do is just throw Swagger into this because I want to use Swagger to help with some of the basic testing we do before we actually start looking at the Amazon website and actually starting to build some interaction with the Amazon skill kit that's up there. So let's just quickly throw Swagger into the project. So we can do that through NuGet. So hello NuGet packages, and strangely enough, it's actually called Swashbuckle, the package we want. Swashbuckle .ASP.NET Core. So we want to make sure we get the ASP.NET Core version. We're using ASP.NET Core version 2.2. And here's Swashbuckle, and we grab that, install that. Okay, there we are, and we want Swagger as well. Let's install that. Okay, so that's what we're in. So let's close this down. And in order to actually to fire up Swagger, we need to do a bit of configuration. So we do that configuration over in the startup class. Let's just close this down, get more room. Okay, so we need to put this the Swagger configuration in between the HTTPS redirection and the use MVC. So let's have a look. So the first thing we need to do is obviously we need to use Swagger. Let's put that in. Okay, there we go, using Swagger. And we need to serve the actual document, the Swagger document that we want to generate during this process of writing this API and then linking it up into the Amazon Web Cloud. So yeah, so app dot, and this is the Swagger UI configuration that we're going to set up. So Swagger UI, into that we need to feed some configuration. Oops, there we go, some configuration. So we just create a lambda expression here. My typing is all to pot today. There we go. And we need to define the endpoints. So there's a Swagger endpoint here, Swagger endpoint, and that's simply going to be /Swagger / v1 is going to be the version of the document we're going to create, and then swagger.json, which is going to be the where we download the JSON file. So this is going to kind of build our nice UI for us. And then we need to actually give our API a name. We're just going to call it SMB Alexa. So I notice there's a few viewers at the moment. Could you give me an audio report, guys, please, and see if actually we're looking okay from an audio point of view? And also the background music, can you hear it? Is it too low, too loud, whatever? We appreciate a report, please. So there's the SMB Alexa version 1. So that should give us our UI. And yeah, we've forgotten one thing. We need to actually surround this with curly brackets. Right, so there we go. So that's happy now. Okay, so we've got Swagger in place now. Oops. No, there we go. And the semicolon there as well. Okay, fair enough. Let's just tidy that up a bit. Okay, so let's just fire it up and make sure Swagger's happy. Oh, what we got here? Swashbuckle. Okay. we've forgotten to do something. So we need to configure the Swagger. Yeah, so we forgot to do the service configuration. So let's go up into our configure services and set that up. So we need to register the document generation in Swagger. So let's go and do that. So we'll do it once again before the MVC. Just stop the project. Okay, so services, services to add Swagger. Add Swagger gen. Okay, so and once again we've got the same kind of idea here. We're going to have to create a configuration lambda, and we won't forget the curly brackets this time. And in here we need to just basically give the Swagger document a title. So we're going to reference the C there for the configuration and the Swagger doc, and what we'll call it, it's going to be version 1 as we said, so version 1 v1. The next parameter here is an info object, so we're going to create a new info, and in there we're going to give it a title, and that title is going to be SNB Alexa, and the second item it's going to want there is a version number, so we're going to simply call it v1 as well. There we go, so that should be enough there, and we need to close that off. Okay, so this time when we run the project we should be okay. Okay, there's our values. So if we pop over to Swagger, undefined Swagger rsoft, looks like I've missed a slash off here, so fix that. That'll be down here. There we are. There's a slash missing there rather than that full stop. So let's correct that. Whoops. There we go. And just quickly prove it all works okay. Let's pop over to Swagger. And there we are. So those are the default values and methods we get when we build the out of the box API. So we got our get, our post, our get, our put and delete. So we're not going to be using those, but those are basically I'm going to leave those there because a bit later on we'll create some custom middleware, and we want to make sure that the custom middleware doesn't get called when we go to our values endpoint, but does when we go to our Alexa endpoint, which we're going to build. Okay. So let's shut that project down. Okay. So what I thought we'd do first would be to have a look at some of the documentation over on the Amazon Apps and Services site. So if you go over here, you can see there's an Alexa Skills Kit, ASK, quite clever really, Alexa Skills Kit link here. We can click on that. We've timed out, so let's go and just log back in. Okay, so we're on a bit where we can create a skill here. What we want to do is have a look at some documentation. So let's pop over to the documentation for now. And on this page we should be able to find some information about the request and the response JSON that we're going to need to handle in our web API. Let's have a look so we can see object schemas. Is that going to be it? No, doesn't look like it. SDK, no, that's they've got actually SDKs for Node, Java and Python, but not for C#, so that's not interesting. Let's do a search here for request JSON. Let's see if we can find what's inside on Alexa JSON request. There, that's exactly what we want. So this is that picture again, so that's useful for us. So here's a request. Okay. So this is the JSON which is generated from a voice command being given to the Echo, and the Amazon software, Alexa software, will generate this and send it to our web service. So this is what we're going to have to kind of handle. So what we need to do is represent this within our C# program. Now, one useful way of doing that is to use some tools which are built into either VS Code or Visual Studio itself, called paste as JSON. So over here in my Visual Studio Code, I have installed that extension, paste JSON as code. It's by QuickType. Very, very useful extension. So let's go and grab some JSON from that web page. Just going to copy all of this, and we're not going to use all of it initially. We're going to cut some of it out. Okay, here we go. So got that, and paste that into here. So let's have a look what we've got. So we got this is there's two kind of parts to this JSON. If you look at it, there's this almost header information here, which is the version of the API presumably, and some session information, including the important application ID, which we'll see later how you use that. And also then we've got this request, and this is basically wrapping the actual request we're making, and there's several different types of requests that can be made. So what I'm going to do initially, I'm actually going to cut out this request part of it, and I'm just going to have a look at modeling the header, the request header information within C#. So what we're going to do is grab that, copy it, and I'm going to open another file, and I'm going to view the command palette, and we're going to paste as JSON, paste code as JSON. Do that. Oops. And we want to use C#. Oh, doesn't. Oh, okay, we messed that up. Derp. Okay, let's try again. So, command palette, paste JSON as code, C#. Clipboard does not. Obviously, we've actually messed up the copy of the JSON, have we? Let's have a look. Let's go and get the JSON again and do the whole lot, and I'll cut it out. Actually, I have noticed that sometimes on these websites the JSON they have in their examples isn't actually valid JSON, so that may be the issue. So let's try that again. So we're going to go to the command palette, and we're going to check JSON as code, C#. Yes, it's not valid JSON, which is really good, isn't it? Oh, Dev Chatter is raiding with a party of 42. My God, that's absolutely amazing. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the stream. Hi, Dev Chatter, Brendan. It's really good to see you. Yeah, we've just started. So what I've been going through with the people who are already on the stream was basically looking at the Alexa Skills Kit and describing basically how when you speak, the user speaks into their Echo device, that is packaged up and sent into the Amazon cloud, and the skill which you create within the cloud will result in a request being made out to a web service, and that's what we're going to be building. Then a response is generated by the web service, sent back to the text-to-speech system, and then that is fed back to the Echo device, which then says what you got sent back in the response. And also there's this kind of visual thing which some Echo devices have a screen which you can post card and textual information on it, and other devices such as on your phone, if you have Alexa on there, obviously have a visual part of it. So I know we've got several viewers in now, so could I have an audio report into chat, please? Because I do worry that my audio is something of a work in progress. So I'm still. Oh, it's good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I'm using a Blue Snowball, and it has to be quite close to the mouth in order to get decent sound. So I've got a pop filter in front now, so hopefully it's a bit better than it has been in the past. So thanks for that. Okay, so it looks like we're having trouble with the fact that the Amazon website doesn't have valid JSON as an example, which is typical. Our ears aren't bleeding. Okay, that's good coding, Karma. And the music is. Can you hear the music? I've got some slight background music going. If it's too quiet, I'll bring it up. If it's too loud, let me know. If you can't hear it at all, that's really. I can't see much in the way of output on my desktop audio here, so it'd be interesting to know if you can hear any music at all. Okay, so let's sort this JSON out, which is very useful for me to run into an issue like this, but that's what we're here for, isn't it? Oh, Massive Quasar, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the follow. As you can see, we're now 68% of the way towards our target of 50 followers by the end of next month. So that is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Actually, I was very pleased to note that C# Fritz followed while I was offline, so I was very pleased by that. So I really admire his streams, which really kind of got me into listening and watching live coding streams. So that was very gratifying. Hello, Massive Quasar, welcome. Okay, so let's have a look what we can see with this code. So that looks okay. That looks alright. Attributes. I wonder if that's it. Attributes is collapsing the whole thing. So I'm not sure that is correct. I suspect that it's more like that. Context. Let's give that a go and see if it likes that any better. So once again, we've got paste JSON as code extension in Visual Studio Code here. So we'll give that a go. No, it doesn't like it still. So this is not the kind of issue I expected to come across straight away like this. So let's go and have a look at actually a closer definition of what this is supposed to look like. Okay, so let's do search for the Jeff Blankenberg for a follow. Thank you very much. That is fantastic. So now we're 70% of the way there. So yes, really appreciate that. Obviously, as a Coding Karma, thank you as well. So we're getting closer and closer, creeping towards that target. It's very pleasing personally for me to get these follows, because obviously I'm a new streamer. I've been listening to the likes of Brendan for, well, quite a long time now, 8-9 months. Much admired the skill of this streaming, and much admired the kind of the feedback into the community which streaming on Twitch actually gives. So I really wanted to support the developer community in my own way, and I'm hoping that by doing these kind of streams, which are a bit more beginner friendly in many ways, but not learn to code streams, that I kind of find a niche somewhere which isn't necessarily covered by everyone else. Okay, so let's do this search. So we want to do request JSON again. So wonderfully we found some, oh yeah, a JSON reference, that's probably better, that we found some invalid yes, maybe we'll try this. So let's grab hold of this. So this is the they call it the request body, but I'd rather say it's the header of the request, because the actual request is actually going to be in this request piece down here. Let's grab that. And let's replace that. And what I want to do is just remove that request piece there. And we've got some text that's come across. Let's grab that and see if we can paste that as JSON. So command palette, paste as code, we want C#. There we are. So we're going to call this an Alexa request. Zora, thank you very much for the follow. Wonderful. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, let's paste that. So we've actually succeeded. We've got our code here. So this is what we'll term the header code. So this is the header for a request that the Alexa software is going to make to our web service. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to move this. So if you just look at it, there's quite a few different classes being created. What I'm going to do is just move. I'm going to move that off the screen, close this down, that down, and I'm going to start to move those classes across into our project. So what I'm going to do is create another project in here. Now, who was that? Fixter Jake 14. Thank you very, very much for the follow. That's fantastic. So we're 74% of the way there. That's wonderful. Okay, so we want to create a .NET standard library, class library, and we're going to call it snb.alexa.lib. And what we're going to do with this this library is eventually we're going to build a NuGet package and publish that up onto NuGet, and then we'll be able to bring that down to other projects. But there's a fair amount of work to be done just setting up the library. We'll make a start on that tonight. Try and get some Alexa interactions going, and then build on it later on as we go through future episodes of Codebase Alpha. Okay, so let's create a folder in here, and we'll call this request. We can get rid of that. Within the request, we're going to add a new class, and this is going to be our Alexa request class. So Alexa request, like that. And what we can do is I can just reach across to that file that we had before, and just pull out some of the code that was generated by QuickType for us. But what we're going to do first is to get newtonsoft.json into our project. So newtonsoft.json, let's see how many billions of downloads it has. Every time I come to download this package, it's gone up. So let's see what it's looking like now. So newtonsoft.json, so now it is 192 million downloads. So it was 190 last time we looked. So another 2 million downloads since Tuesday, which is quite hard to cope with, really, isn't it? Okay, let's install that. Okay, so we've got the JSON package in there now, and here's our Alexa request. What we can do is reach across into the file that we created with the paste.json, and just bring in that basic part. Okay, so this is obviously created. Let's just fix these squigglies. So we just bring the JSON package in. We've got a couple here of objects which aren't of classes which aren't defined, some types there. So we need to create those. Oh, another follow. Rambling Geek, wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for the follow. 76% of the way to our target. I can't tell you how grateful I am for the follow. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's continue a bit further. So we need now to start to fill out some of these other classes that we need to define. So this part of the of building your API and building it with class library is somewhat repetitive, but if you bear with me, I want to show the whole process rather than just kind of magically coming on stream with this library built, or just building it the whole thing through cut and paste of code. So this is the session, and I'll just go and grab the session from the file that QuickType generated for us. So that's down here. So here it is. Let's just make this a public class. Bring in Newtonsoft. And actually, did we make this a public class? We didn't, so let's make that public as well. There we go. Let's save that up. Okay, so we got our session. Once again, we got this. There's endless nested attributes in this, so there's some more stuff to do there. But let's just go back to our Alexa Quest, and we've got context now. So let's create a context class. So here we go. So context. Make it a public class again. And what I find that in a lot of streams or videos you might watch on YouTube, that you don't actually see the whole process of these things being built. And you know, I don't know if it makes great watching, but at least you can see the whole thing coming together. And there are some more interesting parts to this process when we get to the request class, where we have to actually create a feature within the JSON conversion to actually convert requests into different types of requests, which people might find a bit more interesting. Okay, so we've now got this context audio player. Now we'll include it. But we're actually not going to be using an audio player. But we'll create it anyway, just because so we can fill out the context. So this is context audio player. And if you do find this this part of the process repetitive and not very instructive, I do apologise, but we'll be testing this shortly, and then we'll be going later on in the stream over onto the Alexa Skill Kit to actually start to build an interaction and test that, and hopefully get some voice back from Alexa, at least on the test site that they have. So let's create the context audio player, make it public again, and I'll just pull across once again from the QuickType file that was created for us, the properties there. Okay, there we go. So we can save that, and we actually can close that down because that's the end. We don't need to create any more custom types for that, so we can stop. So we've got something called system class next. So let's create that. We are. Once again, that's public. So hopefully we should be able to speed up a bit now and get these things built. Bring in Newtonsoft again, and that one is, it's got device application using it, so we need to leave that. Oops. Save that. What have we got over here? So that context is filled out okay. Session's got application attribute and use it as a system class. And this has got a device. So let's have a look at, let's do application next, because it appears a couple of places. So let's build the class for application. Okay. Very often when you do work on software projects, there's sometimes a lengthy period of actually project setup before you get to the interesting parts, and I guess this is our part. We probably could have things built a bit more automatically for us, but you do find that you can't just use the JSON to code feature and blindly accept everything it says, because it will get things, I won't say wrong, but not right in many ways. It's just not how you want them. So that's system class. So we're done with that. So we've got, that's application, sorry. So we've got attributes and user on this one. And what was the other one we had, which was another follow. Plutonen, thank you very much for the follow. Really appreciate. Nice to see you come across some Dev Chatter stream. I haven't actually found a regular streaming time yet, but I am starting to think that at least once a week in a kind of post Dev Chatter stream slot might be a good idea. Plus maybe a couple of earlier for you in the US perhaps, but around about 4 or 5 o'clock over in the UK. That may be the best times for me at the moment. The reason why I haven't settled on a regular schedule is that I have to stream when I'm on my own in the house. My wife and my granddaughter would make too much noise. I'd disturb them. They wouldn't be able to watch the television and things like that. So I do need to be mindful of them. And also you'll notice, and I do apologise, that we are currently a webcamless stream. I actually don't have a webcam. I don't have sufficient lighting in the room, and also I'm actually sat right in front of several racks of drying clothes. So there's a fair amount of expense and organisation that will be required before I can get the webcam up and running. When I'm going to buy one is the first thing, but there's also lighting, softboxes, maybe some kind of screen. I know that Gareth successfully uses a white sheet behind him, but I don't think that's going to fly. Something that's going to be self-supporting will be required, really. So hopefully I'll sort something out at some point. But in the meantime, you'll have to bear with me with not being visible to you. I'm not sure you want to look at my ugly mug anyway, but that's neither here nor there. So let's create the user class next. Okay. So this is going to be user. Okay. Public class user. And once again, we'll just pull the properties off of the file that was created for us by paste.json. This has got permissions object down here, so we need to create a class for that. So let's quickly do that. We're getting quicker. Permissions. Did I spell that right? Permissions, yeah, I think so. And it's simply got a string property on that. So that's that. So we need to bring in once again the Newtonsoft, and then we can save and shut that down, and then user needs the JSONsoft package as well. The using for that. Thank you. There we go. Now we can save that. Okay, so session looks okay now. So user looks okay. Session, we've got attributes. So let's go and grab attributes. So attributes. Yes. Attributes. So attributes is one of those ones where I'm not convinced it's correct, but let's just fix it for now. I suspect that just the JSON, the paste.json hasn't got that right. So let's just attributes. There we go. And at the moment, the paste.json thinks that's simply a string value. So we'll put that in there. I don't think it's that important to us at the moment, but I do think we're going to have to come back and correct that. It doesn't seem logical that it's something called attributes is a single field. So we'll go and have a look at some more examples of the JSON and see what we see. So session looks okay now. I think everything else is looking okay. Yep, I think it's okay. So, there was something on the audio player, wasn't there? Oh, context audio player. No, that looks okay. Right. So let's just check that against the list of things here. So we've got our things here. So we've got our Alexa request, which we've done. We've got context, we've got that. We've got our context audio player, system class. Yes, we've got system class. Application, we've got that. Oh, there's device here. We haven't done device. So I wonder where device, and so device was in the system class. So let's go and have a look at system class. And yes, so device hasn't been done. So let's grab the code for that. So let's quickly go to device. And we're nearly there, I think. There's a few more, just a few more things to sort out, and then we'll be able to try this out in a little test using Swagger. So device, this is brought across here from our file, which we pasted into again. JSON in, and we got this supported interfaces. So a lot of this stuff, it's not going to be directly useful to us, but it's probably a good idea to get the request header or the Alexa request object actually built out as far as we can. Now we will be ignoring some parts of it. Specifically, we won't be supporting all of the types of requests that can be made. We're going to be concentrated on the requests that we're interested in actually receiving from the Alexa software, and what we receive obviously will be governed by the intent, what's called the intent that we're going to create in the skill kit. Okay, so this is supported interfaces. That's that. And this next part, we created supported interfaces audio player. I'm just going to copy that because that's a long title. Where I'm pretty sure that the class that we're going to create now isn't the final thing, but we'll just create it anyway. So we've got a template for it. Supported interfaces audio player, and we're simply going to leave it as that. Okay, so we're not actually going to define any of it. Pubic, that's good, eh? Okay, so now we should have, if we bring this across again, we've got our Alexa request, we've got our context, yeah, we've got context audio player, we've got system class, we've got application, device, supported interfaces audio player, we've got user, permissions we've got, session we've got, attributes we've got, and we know that's not going to be quite correct. Okay, so when we do this this conversion, QuickType gives us a few useful little features which we're going to actually steal from this file. So there's this converter class here. So what I'm going to do initially is pop that into the same file as the Alexa request. We need to bring that in as a converter. Times system globalization. There we are. Okay, so we're going to let that live in there for now, and we'll move these things around. So you're saying it looks a bit out of focus. Does anyone else think that the video is out of focus and I sound like I'm underwater? Do feedback these audio reports, because it is a work in progress with the audio. So if anyone else thinks I sound underwater, could you report back for me, please? So we've got something here. So supported interfaces. Okay, supported interfaces. Well, we missed that one, haven't we? So let's go and find that. So my monitor's not very high resolution. I've got this brand new PC, so it's got a monster graphics card in. Well, a monster graphics card as far as I'm concerned. But my monitor isn't high resolution, so I can throw out 4K, virtual reality, all kinds of stuff from my graphics card, but my monitor isn't up to that. So it's all part of the ongoing expense of trying to build up the equipment. So this initial outlay on the actual PC was quite high, and I was let down severely by Amazon. Actually, they never delivered. And took ages to refund me as well, so I had to go out and buy. I actually consoled myself by buying a better one than the one I ordered from Amazon, but it was quite a lot of money. So it's probably the most I've ever spent on a PC. So yeah, that's why it's a slow process really to build these things up. Luckily, microphones and pop filters and things are quite cheap, but lighting equipment, good webcams, and good monitors. Yeah, they're going to cost me. So what we wanted to build supported interfaces, didn't we? So let's add that in. Add that class in. Interfaces. Okay, so we're nearing the end of this initial phase of building. Building the various classes which we're going to use to model the request that's coming in from Alexa. So let's find where there we are. So it was something called supported interfaces, and there it is. Okay. We just need to add a using statement in for that, and we should now build. Fingers crossed, yes, we built. Okay, so we've got the basics of the header of the request actually in there now. So let's go into our API now, and let's actually create an endpoint so that we can actually try and consume some JSON from. So let's create a new controller. This is going to be an API controller. It can be empty. This is going to be our Alexa controller. Okay, so that build. So I'm a real noob with working with things like OBS and with Twitch. So you're saying that I am working at 60 frames per second. I can try and reduce that. I'm not exactly sure how to do that while live, to be perfectly honest with you. Do bear with me. I'll leave it, and maybe when we take a break a bit later on, I'll try it. I can't do it on live. There we go then. So I can't do it. But I will have a fiddle with the various settings and see what happens for the next stream. Okay. So let's have a look what we're going to do now. So we've got our Alexa controller, and probably the best thing we can do is to we want an endpoint here, don't we? We want a HTTP post endpoint. So we think we can actually. No, we'll leave that for the moment because I did want to steal that converter. Or did I actually do that? I can't remember what. This is the problem with. Oh, we did. No, we took the static, didn't we? The class, internal class. So let's actually create an endpoint here. So we want a public, and we're gonna make it void for the moment, but it's actually going to return an Alexa response is the concept here. So, but we'll just call it void at the moment, and we're going to call it DevStreams because the ultimate aim is to is to be able to ask Alexa when someone's streaming next or for their schedule, and have it say that back to us. What we want to do then is integrate this whole thing into the DevStreams project over on Brendan's stream, so that not only is there a website, there's also an Alexa skill going on. And what we want to read into here is an Alexa skill. Oh, thank you very much for the follow. Let's see who that was. Gregamidian. Greg. We'll call you Greg. Thank you very much for the follow. We're now at 80% to the target. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm actually overwhelmed by the response. So thank you very much, Greg, as I'll call you. Greg Works, thank you. Okay, so we want to this Alexa skill, and we need to name it something. Let's call it someone. Alexa. No, it's not Alexa skill, it's Alexa request, isn't it? And we'll call it Alexa request. Let's bring that in. So, and we want to. This is going to be a HTTP post. So let's just decorate that with a post attribute. I'm just going to move this slightly, this microphone arm slightly. Wow, another one. Swee following. Thank you very much, Swee. 82% of the way there, so that's fantastic. I'm just blown away, really am. Okay, let's shut that down too. Okay, so it's becoming in the post, so we need to bring in our library. So let's add a reference to our library. And we can be using, so we'll get the request in, so that's that. So the other thing we want to do here is to, well, we've got a route defined for the controller. Let's actually not use a route for the controller at this stage. What we'll do is have a route on the actual method, and I'm just going to hard code it for now. Alexa DevStreams, and I'll try and spell it right. Alexa DevStreams, that's it. Okay, good. Now what we need to do at some point is to make sure that the request that comes into us is actually meant for our application. So I just want to put sudo in here. Ensure that request is meant for us. There's a whole raft of things you have to do in order to be certified by Amazon to actually get your Alexa skill put live for public consumption. One of the basic things is to make sure that you only accept requests that are targeted at your API. There's a whole raft of other things which we need to do, and we're going to create some custom middleware, actually some optional branching custom middleware for our ASP.NET Web API. So that's something to look forward to. We may make a start on that this evening, but we certainly won't complete it because we have to kind of go through each of the certification steps and make sure we understand what they are and how to actually encode them. Okay, so what I think we'll do here is simply create a var request equals Alexa request. We'll stick a breakpoint in here, and I think what we'll do is just make sure we can actually recover. Oh yes, I think this is going to be coming from the body as it's a post, so we need to decorate. I believe we need to decorate this with a from body. That form from body, just so it knows where to get that information from. So let's do our first test, the first place where we could go horribly wrong here. Thank you, Coding Karma. Yes, we're gonna give it a go with Swagger and see what happens. So once we can go back over here and look at our JSON we had, and copy that, and then so we know, we can see that our values endpoint is working okay. We'll go over to Swagger. Okay, here's our Alexa post request here, and you can see that it's given an example of the model which it's expecting to be passed into it, and this is exactly what we've created. Okay, and we know that some of this is probably not 100% correct, but it doesn't actually matter at this stage. So we're going to click the try it out button here. It's actually created some test stuff for us. We'll just replace that with what we've actually cut out, so that's got some data in it. And let's have a look what we do when we execute that. So we've hit our breakpoint, and our Alexa request contains version 1. It's got some content. Let's look at the content. System audio player. It's looking pretty good, isn't it? So we've got our access token. Here we've got our endpoint application. This is the application ID, which is what we're going to use to do this test here to ensure that the request is for us. So that's looking nice. So we look at session, user, yes, we've got permissions, Z, looks absolutely fine. So the only thing we're actually in doubt about, I think, is this attributes, and we'll have a look at that a bit later on, but we don't want to get hung up too much on that. Okay, so now we can leave that breakpoint in actually. Let's go back over to the Amazon site. Let's close these things down. Here we are. So I think I've actually just stepped out of where we needed to be. Let's go once again for request JSON. Okay, the request and response JSON reference is what we want. Now, you'll notice that all this is like this. What we've coded so far is pretty much like preamble. It's a header information. There's this request here, and this is what's actually going to contain the actual request from the skill that we're going to write. This is going to have the meat of the information in it, and you can see here, when under the definition of the various parameters that are in here, that there are standard requests, can fulfill intent, launch request, intent request, session end request, and then there's a bunch of other things: audio player, playback controller, display, gadget controller, and game engine. So these last 5 we're not going to concern ourselves with at all. What we're going to do is to code these 4, and there's a fair amount to do on those, but let's start with the simplest, which I believe is a launch request here. So you can see a launch request basically contains these 4 items, and if we go back quickly and have a look at, for example, an intent request, which is the main thing we're interested in, you can see that the same 4 items kind of start off an intent request as well. So it would be a bit pointless to just repeat everything. So what we're going to do is define a kind of a base class, which is going to be a request, and then we're going to create subclasses of that for each individual type of request, and then we're going to have to write a JSON converter which will look at each of those when they come in on the JSON and convert it to the correct class. So let's create our first one, which is going to be, we'll call it request body, because that's what I think it is. So this is a class, we're going to call it request body. Okay. So let's just pop back into our Alexa request here, and if we just go back to our JSON definition here. Let's go back once more. Here you can see that on the header there are basically version, session, context and request. So we need to add request into our Alexa request object. So let's just take a look at that. Okay, so it's actually called request. You can see there. Okay, so in here, let's just copy this line, and this is called request in the JSON, so we change that to request. Let me spell it correctly. And we'll call it request body, as our object, and it's of type request body. Okay. And we've got a request body here, and what we're going to do is just populate this with the 4 generic items that every request appears to have, at least the request we're interested in. So let's pop across here again and have a look. If we go forwards, we should hit the launch request. So that's the launch request there. Okay, so it's got a type with a fixed and fixed text in it. So that is launch request is the type. Okay, then it's got 4 string items. Okay, so let's do that part. Okay, so in our request body, we want to have a public string type. Let me do the automatic getters and setters on that. I'm just going to move the mic again. Okay, so we've got that, and then we've got request ID. So public string request ID. We want to get, not het. Okay, and another public string, which is going to be locale. So it does. The Amazon Echo does support a number of locales. Notably, last time I looked on the website, a lot of it was UK, Germany, and the US. In terms of, you'll see what I mean by that when we look at some of the what they call slots in a Amazon skill, where they're kind of predefined values. For example, there's a slot called UK cities, so it recognises cities like London, Birmingham, Bath, Wolverhampton, things like that. So I think there's some German ones in there as well, so it recognises German cities. So some of the built-in slot types, which we're not going to be using, at least initially, are kind of pre-populated with lots of values which the system will recognise. We're going to be using what's called a custom slot because we're going to be saying things like DevChatter and Clarkio and NoopCat, and those aren't actually. Well, DevChatter is probably okay. Codebase Alpha is okay. Clarkio probably isn't, and NoopCat definitely isn't an English word. So we're going to have to do some work to help out Alexa in working out what we're saying, and we're going to need to give it several options about having to spell the word. So, if you say NoopCat, we want it to respond with what you said, and it might interpret that, for example, as new cat, and we want it to come back and say, didn't understand that. Okay, so this is going to be a date time. This is timestamp. I'm just reading off the website which I've got over to the side here. Let's get set. Okay, so we'll just go and grab some of the adjacent property decorators from here. I'm going to close some of these off because we don't actually need a lot of these anymore. We're running out of space on our tabs. Okay, request body, so let's just bring these in. There we go. Oops. Okay, soft. Okay, so we've got a date time at the bottom here. We've got a date time. So let's go back to our... Did we have any date times over here? I don't think we did. So we've got this converter here. So this is where we need to look at the conversion from JSON. Say we've got this request, so let's grab that and pop it into our. So we might need to kind of do a bit of fettling with some of this kind of stuff. But let's just drop these things in. I mean, it's not going to be called QuickType. We're going to use that converter that we've got there. So let's go and grab that once more. So this static class converter, internal static class converter, we've brought that down here. So we've got a converter for yeah, I think we'll just leave it like that for the moment. Yeah, so is it going to handle the date time conversion? I think it probably will. We'll have to experiment with that. So we'll leave that simply as JSON property date time, and we may need to revisit that when we come to. Actually, I mean the timestamp is going to be important to us because of part of the security requirements we're going to have. But for testing, it won't be important at all. So we'll be able to revisit that at some point. Maybe later in the stream, maybe on a future stream when we come and tidy this up, because I do want this library to be up on NuGet and to be useful, at least in its limited scope. Okay, so we've got our request. So this basically fulfills this type here, this request body, but we're never going to have a type in reality created a request body. We're going to have some subtypes of that. So we're going to create some subtypes now. So the first subtype we want to handle is the launch request, and luckily the launch request is simply the same as a request body. If we go back and have a look at that, you can see that a launch request simply has type, request ID, timestamp and locale on it. So actually there's not an awful lot to do. What we can do, if we just grab the name of launch request and we create a class of launch request and make that public, and we inherit from request body, then we've actually fulfilled what we need to do there. Hello there. Oh, it's Adam. The Hubmeister's here. Welcome, Adam. Adam is a work colleague of mine, and he did say he might try and drop in during the stream, so welcome. And Adam is a follower, so thank you for that follow, Adam. Do appreciate you dropping in. So we're right in the middle of creating the API for our Lexer skill, and at the moment we're in the portion of the code when we're actually just modeling out the request that's going to be coming in from the Alexa software. So it's basically taking some JSON in and then mapping all that into classes. That's what we're doing at the moment. Okay, so now this is where it gets slightly more interesting, I suspect, in that we're going to have to kind of try and convert. Oops, sorry, this code's gone off the screen. We're going to have to try and convert our generic kind of JSON that comes in. It's going to come in looking like a request, and we're going to have to try and map it to a particular class. So we'll start off just by trying to resolve that for the launch request type. Okay. So what we want is a converter of some kind. So let's create a new folder, and we'll call it converters. We may have more than one, I don't know. And within here we're going to create a new class. So we add a class, and we're going to call it Alexa request converter. No, request type converter. Request type converter. So the job of this is going to be to say, okay, you've got something which fits into that request slot within the JSON, and we need to convert it to a concrete type, well, a subtype of the request, so something that will have more or less details in it. So the launch request has got no extra details, the intent request has got quite a lot of extra details, and so forth. So in order to do this, we need to actually create a subclass of the JSON converter type. So JSON converter comes to us from the Newtonsoft.json package. So we should be able to bring that in, and we should be able to then implement that interface, implement the abstract class rather. So there we go. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So I'm just going to move some of these things around a bit because we're not actually interested in writing any JSON. We're accepting this request into our service, and we're not going to be able to convert it back. So I'm going to move that up there so it's out of the way, and we're going to concentrate on looking at this read JSON. So we're going to be getting our value is going to come in as an object, and we've got this JSON reader here, so we should be able to pull our object out of that reader. So let's create a variable and call it JSON object, and if we look in the JObject class, there is a load static on there. Oops, I think it's a JObject, not JSON object. JObject, there we go. Let me bring that in. And we've got this JSON reader here, and we can pop that into the load, and then that will give us our object. So now we've got a JObject, which is what it's pulled out of the JSON. So from this JObject, we need to find out what type our subobject is. Okay, so each of these, if you remember, if we go back to the JSON, to the request body here, it's got a type on it, and this type, if you pop over here, you can see that the value in the type for a launch request is simply launch request. Okay, so we can we need to kind of pull that out of our object and find out what the type is. So the type is going to be so we want to create a type. So let's create a method to do that. Okay, let's break it down a bit further. So we want to create a type there, but request type, the names are a bit rubbish here, so we'll sort that out. We're looking at a JSON object. This is where we're just think a bit more on our feet. Within the JSON object there is an attribute called type, and we want to get the value of that, and it's a string. So that should give us the request type, and we're going to pass request type into our method, and we're going to create this as a private method. Okay, so what we want to do is return a request body, and based upon the request type we want to create a new type, which is a subtype of request body. So we're going to be dealing with 4 basic types. There's going to be, if we go back to our documentation, we're going to be dealing with, is it 4 or 5 basic? It's 4 basic types. Can fulfill intent request, launch request, intent request, and session end request. So let's put a switch statement in, and we'll switch on request type. Okay. So in the case that it is launch request, I think we'll replace these magic strings by constants at some point. Put the colon in the wrong place. Launch request. Then we want to return a new launch request. Let's bring in these various missing bits. Okay, so we're returning that, and what we'll do is fill in. No, we'll just have a default at the moment. Let's make sure we can actually get this to work. I wish I could spell tonight. Default, and I guess we throw an exception. An argument out range exception. Sounds reasonable. Unknown request type. And what we'll do, is we'll do a bit of string interpolation and actually put the type that we receive. That way, well, at least we'll get a bit of information back there. Okay, and that was the request type. Okay. Alright, read JSON. Okay, okay, so now we've got our type here. So let's call this concrete type, subtype. Okay. Naming, the hardest thing apart from, what was it, cache invalidation. Okay, so now we need to actually read that in, don't we? We need to serialize it. So we've created target is type that. We need to we've got a serializer that's been passed in there called serializer. So let's utilize that JSON serializer that we already have with us. And what methods have we got on that? Let's have a look. Populate, that looks good. So we want to populate JSON object. We can create a reader, so we can read what's in there, and as well as the create reader, we need to send in the actual subtype. Okay, so that should serialize it to, so that should read the JSON and serialize it to the correct subtype, and then we can return the subtype. So this is going to be a bit of a test now, isn't it? So see if we can actually do that. Okay, so let's go and get a sample of the JSON from over here. I think we had a sample just over here. So this is a launch request. Let's grab that piece of JSON, copy it, and in our code here we can now add in, so we've got version, so it's going to be at this level. We're going to have a request. This is where we ruin the JSON, but I'll give it a go. Request, and our request is going to be that launch request. Let's get rid of that bit of straight text. So let's feed this into Swagger and see what happens. So we should get a launch request object as part of our structure, and not a request body. That's the theory anyway. I can hear a cat meowing outside wanting to come in, so I might take a short break. If this works, we'll take a short break, just a couple of minutes while I let the cat in. Okay, here's our post. We'll try it out. Let's fill in our piece of JSON and execute. Okay, did we put our breakpoint in? Did I forget to put the breakpoint in? That's a controller. Oh, we're not. Interesting. So what happened there? Okay, let's stop this. Let's make sure we clear these off. Okay, and try again. So it could be that I've made an error with the JSON. Otherwise, what we'll do is take the example. Okay, there we go. Let's try feeding our JSON in again. Missed it. Let's go and grab it again. Copy and paste that in. Didn't see it paste it in. Oh, well, that's because we're in the wrong place. We need to be trying it out. Nobody said anything, did they? So we're not hitting our breakpoint. So it's okay. So it's this date time. It's this date time that it's having trouble with. So let's go and have a look at that. Let's see if we can solve the date time issue. Okay, so stop the website. I think we're going to need another converter. So let's have a look at the data we're getting. I don't see a date time in there. Do you want to see a date time? But it does alert us we're going to have trouble with date times. Can't see a date time in here. Let's try once more. Okay, so I'll tell you what we'll do for now, just to work around this. The date time. Oops, don't want you to be down there. Let's find the date time and just remove it temporarily. That's it here. So let's. Oh, okay. So it's the date time on our new request body. So let's comment it out for now. But it's not important just yet. Let's start ourselves up again. Copy that. And then pop across to Swagger. Okay. Post. Try it out. Let's post in our JSON. Execute. And now we've hit our breakpoint. So we do need to sort that out. And our request now contains, so it's got content, it's got a request body there. Okay, so did it convert it? It didn't. It's type request body. Okay, so there's a few question marks about whether that worked or not, isn't there? So let's try that once more. See that through. Go over here. And it's in our request type converter, isn't it? So let's stick a breakpoint in here and then follow it through. So back on our website we should be able to once again execute that. Okay, so looks like it's not going to break for us. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to have a quick 2-3 minute break. We'll let the cat in, and then I'll be right back and we'll sort this out. Okay, so I'm just going to go onto a be right back screen, and bear with me for just 1 or 2 minutes. And we're back, and of course the cat doesn't just want to be let in, it wanted to be feeding. In the meantime I've realised what our issue is, so we didn't actually bother to tell it to use our converter, which is why it didn't actually hit our breakpoint here. So let's go back over to our Alexa request, and this is where the request is coming in. Obviously it's coming through as a request body, so what we need to do is to actually tell it to use our converter. So so let's think about that. Need to use the request converter. Okay, so it's JSON converter. And what does that take? That takes, what does it take as a parameter? A type. Okay, so we want to pass in type of and our request type converter. No, it's the purple for. Oh, we need to use converters. There we are. And it's still not happy. Purple underline. Well, we'll see what that does. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Hubmeister, it's the attributes. So let's give it another go and see what happens this time. Okay. So we need to go to the Swagger endpoint again. We're going to try out our post, and let's go and grab the sample code again. Paste that in, and executes, and we hit. Here we reached our code. So the subtypes it's going to return is a launch request, so it's actually working now. So it was just being ridiculous and not actually bothering to do the conversion. Yes, you can see launch request here. So it's a request body is a launch request. So what we should be able to do now is actually go through and set up all the other different types of requests that can come in. So what we're going to do is basically do the intent, which is the one we're really interested in. Launch request is used when you say Alexa, open DevStreams or start DevStreams, and you don't give it an instruction, so it will then respond. We'll get it to respond somehow to say, welcome to the DevStreams skill. And then when you give it a command like Alexa, ask DevStreams for dev chatters schedule, then that's when we have an intent coming in, and that's where it's going to do. It's kind of really clever, a matching of what the speech that you said. It's going to try and interpret that speech, and it's also going to try and block it up into chunks, and then try to figure out where in the sentence the variable is what's called the slot, and that will be the streamer's name or the channel name. I just noticed that Gareth has raided with a party of 5 some time ago. Very warm welcome to anyone who's come across from Gareth's stream. So I didn't notice that earlier. We were actually quite deep into try and figure out why that type conversion wasn't working, but we got that working now. So let's do an intent request. So we'll create a new class, intent request. We'll set that up as public, and it's going to derive from request body as before. Okay, so what we need to do is go and have a quick look over on the documentation to see what constitutes an intent request. let's pop over here. We can shut this down. Is our website still running? I don't think it is. Okay, so launch request. There's a can fulfill request. We're not going to worry about that too much today. Intent request. So here's the intent request. Okay, so let's do some magic on that. We'll copy that in, and we'll kind of hope and pray that it's actually valid JSON. Yeah, we'll open a new file, and we'll do a paste JSON as code. C# top level name, intent request. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got something. So here's our initial part of the code which we'll need. We need to grab hold of this. So before it was type, request, timestamp, and locale. We'll grab it all and let's remove the bits we don't need. So let's grab that code, put it across into here, whack that in, bring Newtonsoft using statement into the system, and then we'll get rid of that and these. Okay, so those are the difference between a request body and an intent request. We've got these two additional properties. So we need to create an intent class. So we'll create an intent class. So we'll be back into just mapping, but there's not an awful lot of mapping that we need to do. A little bit, but not too much. Okay, so over here again, here's our intent. So we'll grab that. Populate it into here. Now, this is one of those other instances that you need to be a bit careful of when using this this paste to JSON, where it's going to get things wrong. This slots. You remember when I said that I didn't think the attributes looked right? That doesn't look right to me either. So let's go and have a look at what the definition of slots is in the documentation. So you can see slots is here, and it's got slot name, and it's in capitals, it's capitalized, which really means that it's actually going to be the name of the slot. So it's not a type called slot name. So slots doesn't consist of an object of which has got, it's called, going to be of type slot name with all these various bits and pieces to it. It's actually going to be there could be more than one slot in there. So for example, you could say Alexa, ask DevStreams when DevChatter is streaming next week, and next week. If you wouldn't have heard that, but I've just had an Alexa device just respond to my voice. Then we've got a Kindle Fire tablet over in the corner, and it just says, I don't know what you're talking about, basically. So I've got to be careful when I say Alexa, it's going to kind of fire that thing off. Okay, so so this is going to be basically a dictionary, isn't it? A dictionary of string and then the slot type, which we haven't defined yet. Okay, so let's go back to our, so this isn't, yeah, let's think slightly laterally about this. So yes, okay, so I don't believe it's that. I believe it's a dictionary, a string and type, a new type called slot. Slots. I think that fits a lot better because it's going to be any number of slots that we can have. The string part, the key, is going to be the name of the slot. So for example, streamer name or channel name or when or city. If we're kind of asking general questions about, when is Dev Chatter appearing in Birmingham, it'll come back saying never. So that seems a lot more reasonable as a definition to me. So let's create a slot class. Okay, so there's our slot class. Make it public. So let's go back to our code that we grabbed from here. So slot name is basically going to be our slot. So if we grab these elements here, that's going to be what makes up the slot. Is that looking right? Let's have a look. Go back here. So yes, a slot has a name, a value, blah blah blah. So that's looking correct. And we'll soon find out when we feed something in. Let's paste that lot in and grab our JSON, Newtonsoft.json, bring it in. And we've got confirmation status and resolutions. So confirmation status is a string. We've got this resolutions. Okay, so let's have a look at what that's all about. Go back to here. So we got resolutions, which contains an array of resolutions per authority. Oh, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Okay, well let's run with that. Resolutions. There's resolutions. So we'll just use that. So create a new request type, new class, resolutions. So I think we're getting close to having the request object built. So let's go and grab the code again. There we are. So that's got another type of request. Sorry, resolutions per authority. I'm not really sure what all this is about, but we'll learn. We'll live and learn. This is what this is all about. Resolutions per authority. Okay. Let's just grab the name. Add another class in. Once again, make it public. And then run across over here. And there's resolutions per authority. We're getting close to the bottom now, I think. Pull that in. And we got status and value elements. So let's do status first. Yes, it's one of these things. It's collections within collections within collections. Isn't it wonderful? So I mean, I do promise you that we will get to some interesting code at some point. But we've got to build this basic request up and then build the response. But I may build the response off stream if everyone's okay with that. Okay, so status is simply a string, so we've finished there, which is good news. It may be that these are important long term. These properties we're adding aren't going to be important in the short term when we actually start to code the actual test skills. And then as we build out the skill and start building in the certification requirements, it may well be that these things are going to be required. So we've got something called value element. So let's add that in. Public I think we're getting close now to having this done. So here's value element. It's it's value. That's rubbish naming, so we're going to change that naming. So it's a value. And we can probably go and tidy this up because it does seem a bit nested. But we'll just run with it for the moment because I'm thinking value is probably going to be the bottom of our little chain of classes. Let's go and have a look at what it called value. Yeah, there we are, at the right at the bottom now. So name and ID. Okay, so we can now close these down. Now we need to deal with that date time, but we're going to leave that for the moment because we don't need to check the date timestamp in order to do our testing. Yeah, look at rabbit holes that never end. Look at it, I think it has ended, and that's quite a lot of stuff there, isn't it? Yeah, and obviously there's more if we were to deal with all the audio player and the gadget stuff and the game interfaces. There's a lot more. It goes down even further. But I think we're pretty much where we want to be. We've got the launch request and the intent request. There's a couple of others that were mentioned. There was a can launch and another one which was stream ended or something, and we'll figure those out. Maybe I'll just throw those in off stream as well. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our documentation. There we go. So if we grab that request, that intent request, copy that, and then go over to our sample, which was over here, and rather than this launch request, we populate that with our intent request, and then we go back to our code, and we need to go out to our type converter, and we need to add another case, which is going to be intent request. This is why I guess we download NuGet packages, isn't it? Because poor soul has spent a couple of hours of their life typing all this kind of stuff in. But we'll get the benefit of that when we build the NuGet package from this, and we can then bring it into the DevStreams project over on DevChatter's channel. All this code will be hidden away in our NuGet package, and he won't have to worry about it. And we'll also have full control to update it and to expand it and add all the features we want to. Okay, so now if we start our website, oops, we got a build error. What's that? JSON property. Actually, I missed something here. Here we go. Didn't bring the using statements in here. There we go. So let's get start our website up, or our web API. We can go here. This is our request, which has got the intent request inside it rather than the launch request. Grab hold of that. Go over here to Swagger. If you haven't used Swagger, it's amazing. It's such a simple thing, but to have this kind of tool which documents your API and that also allows you to try it out, I think is just wonderful. So we've hit our breakpoint. If we go in here, we should have an intent request, which we do. Our request body contains an intent request. It's got some test data. It's a type intent request, and it's got some stuff. It's got slots, and now you see it has a set of basically a dictionary key values of the slot. So that's why it looked really weird. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the problem is going to be with the attributes. Yeah, I could change the default route to Swagger. It's something I'll probably do. It's not really what I want to concentrate on. It's just fiddling with that. Obviously, once this API is published up to Azure, then we're never going to actually go to it other than through the Alexa route, so it's not a problem. But I will change. I'll change some stuff off stream, I think, just so it's a bit more immediate. Okay. So that's our request pretty much sorted. So I think what we need to do is have a look at the date, the timestamp issue we were getting. So let's go and have a look at, and that was in request body, wasn't it, when we commented out. So request body here. Let's go back to the documentation. Not there. Here. And it couldn't figure it out because we had the word string in there. But I wonder what the format of the date time is when it comes through from Alexa. Oh, there we are. There's an example. So let's actually pinch that example and put that into our JSON. So date timestamp, rather than the word string, we have that in its place. And what we'll do is grab all, we'll uncomment that. Start up the site. We'll go and grab this JSON with the more realistic data in, not just the word string. There we go. I think you're right, Adam. Going to put in Swagger as a default route would be quite a good idea. Let's whack that in to see what it makes of that. Yeah, so it was happy with that this time because it had the word string in there. So let's have a quick look in it. Yeah, so we got a date time. So I'm happy with that because that issue sorted as well. Just one of the foibles of using data basically copied from a website. Okay, so I think what we should do, just to take a break from the kind of tedious building the code here, is go and have a look over on the Amazon website and look at the Alexa Skill Kit. So I'm probably going to have to sign back in again because it's been such a long time since we last signed in. But this is where, once you've signed up as an Alexa developer or an Amazon developer, where you can create your skills. So let's click on the big blue button and create a skill. So the skill name is going to be DevStreams, because that's basically what we're going to be working with. So now what do I do? Do I default it to US or UK English? What does the chat think? Do I do US or UK? We've got one vote for US. Let's put US in and then we'll see. I think it's more likely to be used by US users, isn't it? Simply because of demographics. So we've got that. It's going to be a custom. It's going to be a custom skill, and it's going to be self-hosted. Yes, we're going to host it in our own web API up in Azure. Okay, so let's create a skill. No, we're going to start from scratch. Oh, choose. Thank you. Okay, so here we are. So invocation name. Enter an invocation name for your skill. Let's see what we did. We chose DevStreams. So let's hope that DevStreams actually wakes it up when we hear that. So that's our you always default to the UK. Yes, well, I know what you mean. But we'll use US, and if I run into trouble because of my accent, then I'll switch it back to UK. Okay, so we've got our invocation is going to be DevStreams, which is probably okay. I think we can possibly split that into two words. Do do that. Dev space streams. Dev streams. Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll save our model. Okay, so these, we need to now create what's called intents. So let's just go back to our list of steps, because here you have your nice set of steps here. So we've created our invocation name. So we're going to say, Alexa, open dev streams, or ask dev streams, and it's going to respond in some way. We need to create a custom intent. Okay. We'll call it dev streams as well. Yeah, we'll call it dev streams as well. Let's see if that causes any issues. So we can have multiple intents within our skill. So we could do different things, but at the moment we're only imagining the dev streams intent being fired off, and we need to put some kind of utterance in here that is going to be used by this this intent. So we want to say something like when is Codebase Alpha streaming next, or when is Clark.io streaming next, when is Noopcat streaming next. So we're going to want a variable which is going to hold the name of the channel, the streamer, that the person speaking to Amazon is going to actually say. So I think we need to create a slot. So we'll add a slot, and you can see when there's a whole bunch of built-in types of slots here. If we open this up, there's famous actors and actresses, so none of them are going to be streamers. There's geographical regions of the US, airlines, airports, animals, artists, cities, Austrian cities. Interesting. Authors, books, so all kinds of things. There's 91 different things that come actually pre-built for you. So we're not going to use any of those. We're going to use a custom type. This is going to be streamer. Or should we call it channel? Let's call it channel. So when you create your slot, what you need to do is to put some sample data in. Now this doesn't mean that these are the only values that will be recognized. It's just sample data, and also in the research I did before starting the stream, it suggested that you have at least one example of each in each sample slot if you've got multiple words. So for example, if you've got Codebase Alpha, that's 3 separate words. You should have a 3-word example. Codebase Alpha is all one word, and Codebase Alpha is 2 words. So we need to look at how many sample values we're going to have to have. So if we start off, we could have dev chatter as 2 words. We could have Noopcat as 2 words. We could have Noopcat as 1 word. Oops, Oopcat, not Noopcat. We can have Codebase Alpha. That's a 3-word sample utterance. We can have Codebase Alpha. And we could have a Clark.io. We could have, well, let's leave it at that and see what we can get away with. Yeah. And then here we'll have when is channel, so I spell channel streaming next as a sample utterance. So that's basically all it'll understand initially. So we've got our single channel, a single slot here in the intent, which is that variable in the curly braces there, and it's of type channel. So let's save the model. Should we try and build the model? Let's build the model. Okay. So everyone keep their fingers crossed this model's going to build, because then we can have a look at testing some of it. Still working away. Yeah, well, I can imagine NoopCat being really difficult for Alexa to understand Coding Karma, because I think it's going to think, well, cat is a word, so it's going to have cat as a separate word, and then Noop, there's no real English word for Noop, so it's going to say new cat. So new cat is what's going to come back to us to our web API, and if it can't find that in the database, and we'll have to do some munging of that word that comes back to kind of get rid of any spaces, any full stops if they spell it out as N-O-O-P-K-A-T. That'll put full stops between them. We need to get rid of all that, munge it back into one word, and then do a Soundex search on the DevStreams database for that channel. But if it can't find it, we need to say what they said backwards, so back to us. So if the person asking says NoopCat, J Steph, thank you very much for the follow, 42. So we're really kind of closing in on that goal. So thanks for the follow. It's really appreciated. Yes, if they say NoopCat and it's interpreted as new cat, we want to say new cat back to them so they know that we didn't understand them. We don't want to just say we couldn't find any streams for whatever you said, new cat. Then we give the option to say maybe to spell it out, and try give the best experience we can. The voice design and the interaction design is going to be quite interesting on this. It's going to be something we're going to have to I'm going to have to read up, and we're going to have to learn together on a future stream just how we actually design the utterances to make this actually work. So we've got a profile up here, so let's have a look at that. So we're going to type in an utterance and see if it identifies the slot. So let's try when is a Hubster streaming next. Let's submit that, and we should identify our slot. So it has. So it's pulled out Hubster, a Hubster, as the channel. And what it will do when we create the request, one of the slots will be a slot of type channel, the name will be channel, and the value will be Hubster. So that will come back in our request as a variable which we can then use in our methods later on. Okay, so I'm not sure if we can do a voice test on it. It's obviously not going to work. So we need a functional endpoint. Okay, we need an endpoint. Let's create an endpoint. Let's publish our website, our web API, up to the cloud. So it's not going to do anything. It's going to return void. So yeah, it's not going to do anything. But let's see what happens. This might be interesting. Okay, so let's publish. Yeah, I'm going to right-click publish. Why not? What could possibly go wrong? Yes, yes. I think the names that our fellow coding streamers choose is going to mean that this may not work very well unless you've got English words. If you're using like handles or leet for the name of your stream, then it's going to be a bit difficult to make this work. So things like C# Fritz should work, Codebase Alpha will work, DevChat will work. I'm pretty sure Clark.io, depends how people say it. If they Clark.io, it might not work. Clark.io should work. Noopcat, I think we can get to work by having the sample utterances in there. So there we are, there's our website. Let's just make sure that it's actually functioning. If I can spell values, that is. Yeah, and make sure the Swagger endpoint is available to us. Lovely, it is. Okay, so let's just grab the URL and then go over to our skill. So we built the model, now we need the endpoint. So our endpoint is going to be a HTTPS endpoint. It's going to be what did we say, Alexa / devstreams. I think that's the endpoint we chose. Let's go and have a look. API Alexa devstreams. Okay, API then. API / and so we need I think it's going to be a subdomain of a domain that has a wildcard certificate from a certificate authority. I think that's what we need to choose because we're obviously being hosted by Azure. Could Alexa be clever with part of the word? Well, that's something we're going to have to find out. I mean, that's really thing we can do by experimenting and also making our web API smart in the way it uses what comes back in the slot to kind of change that for the search against the database. So we can use SoundX, which means basically SoundX is going to remove the vowels and it's going to do some clever things with prefixes, and I think things like certain sounds like sandwich and sandwich, that should actually SoundX should identify that, and sandwich, I think it also will identify it. Yeah, so there will be a context. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all works, if I'm honest with you. So we'll save that endpoint. And let's go to our test and see what happens now. Okay. Should we give it a go? We know it's gonna throw an error in that it's going to time out. It's not going to get a response back. But is it going to send? Let's try. Alexa, ask DevStreams, when is DevChatter streaming next?
Dreams aren't well understood, but scientists generally believe they are essential to the brain's healing and memory processing abilities.
So, Alexa, tell me dreams when StepChatter is streaming next is rubbish, isn't it? So let me try. I think this might be American. So let's try UK. And we're not able to change it here. Okay, I'll try again. Alexa, ask DevStreams, when is DevChatter streaming next?
I don't know that.
Alexa Cream, when is David streaming next? We've got a way to go here, haven't we? But I think we can get this working. I think it's because we got this set up as a US. So I'm going to see if I can change it to be UK English, because I think it's having trouble with my accent. So let's change it to, let's add English UK and save that, and then I should be able to go into the test and try it again with UK English. English GB. Now, who thinks this is going to be any better? And my Brummie accent doesn't really help, does it? So there isn't English Brummie, unfortunately. Brummie means someone from Birmingham in the UK, for our UK people, for our US people. Okay, here we go then. Alexa, ask DevStreams, when is Hubster streaming next?
I don't know that one.
So we're getting closer, aren't we? Alexa, ask DevStreams, when is Adam streaming next?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's having trouble with our initiation word, isn't it? So let's change the initiation word to something else, just for purposes of testing. So that's our invocation. So what should we change our invocation to? Live coders? Dev is probably not a word in. Well, actually, Coding Karma, that's interesting because I think it might be. I get the idea. One sample utterance is required. But is it lost our utterances? Oh, I wonder if it's lost because we've changed the. Yeah. So DevStreams is our custom intent. Yeah, it's lost all the information, hasn't it? That's not very friendly, is it? That's not very friendly at all. Okay, well, when is we lost all our slots as well, so let's create the slots again. So apologies, at least you're seeing how a slot is created. So channel, create custom slot type. So we had dev chatter. Death Cheddar is the other one we should put in there, isn't it? But we won't do. Code base alpha. And a 2-letter one. We'll have code base alpha. And then we'll have dev chatter. Who else do we have? We had Clarko. Instafluff. Code Rushed. Code Rushed, and then we'll have code space rushed. That should be enough to get us going. Adam, no problem. Thanks for dropping by, and have a good evening, and hope it all goes well tomorrow. And we'll see you next week. Adam's going to have some training in Azure Flow and Power Apps next week, so that should be interesting. Okay, so we've got our slot, DevStreams. So we was going to, let's just shorten it to schedule for channel. I need to spell. There's one utterance. There we go. Get these out of the way. Save the model. Sessions expired. Thank you very much. I wonder if that's what happened. Refresh your browser to log in. I wonder if that's what happened to us. That we actually got timed out. So you may get to see this done again. I think you will. Look, we've lost it all again. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you very much. Okay, so my sincere apologies. But we're going to be in these screens quite a bit as we start to kind of work on the interaction model and try to figure out exactly how we phrase things. So we had dev chatter. What else did we have? We had code rushed. We had Clark. Yeah, I want to put plenty in so we can just give it, if we can get it to work at all, give it a bit of a run. Instafluff. And once again, remember these aren't the only values it will accept. These are just sample values. It will accept and make up its own version of whatever you say and stick it in that slot. It's just that the reason why you have multiple words is that it'll only accept as many words as there are in the sample. So if you want a 4-word, so for example, if you had something like well, we've got a Janiscu 7 in the stream at some time. So if it was Janiscu 7596, for example, that's got 5 words in it, so it wouldn't accept it. Let's leave it at that and see what we do. So then we're going to go to our, so we've got that. Let's go to our intents. Add the intent again, which is the dev streams intent. That matches up with the what we're going to pull out at the other end. Okay, custom intent. So schedule for channel. Channel, which is of type. Go away. Type. Private, and then of type channel. Save the model. Let's see if we can build the model. Build failed. Sample utterance. I'm sure we gave it a sample utterance. At least one required. Missing sample utterance. Why does it think we haven't got a sample utterance? There's one. We've not added it, that's why. Yes, that's not exactly intuitive. Okay. We're building. We're building. So we'll get a round of applause if this builds, I think. The build failed. Right? Well, why is it failing? Missing sample utterance. At least one sample utterance required. No, it has build successful. There we go. Something for that. Okay. Let's test. Alexa, ask live coders schedule for C# Fritz.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Well, that's pretty good actually, isn't it? Because there is, that's a request. Come back null. The request looks okay. So this is the session ended request. So we've got something back. We sent something which is a bit weird, haven't we? Let's try once more. Alexa, oh, I'll learn to speak. No content yet. Alexa, ask live coders for the schedule for Instafluff. That looks okay, doesn't it? No, we don't do that. So let's check through again. We've got the dev streams intent. Our invocation is live coders. It did seem to pick that up. We've got a slot called channel. Is this slot required for the intent? Let's say that is. No, well, it's not, because that's going to require dialogue, and we need to get into dialogue next time when we actually get into a to and fro with Alexa, and that she says you didn't supply a channel, and you get to supply the channel. So this is all part of the interaction design. We're going to have to spend some time figuring out, but we just want to get something basic working today. Okay, so we've got our channel. Let's simplify this. Tell me about channel. Now it may well be that that's my phone. Okay, so I'm going to have to go very shortly to go and pick my wife up. Yes, the applause was from the stream, yeah, so I've got a button on my stream deck which says the applause. So let's just give this one more go. Unfortunately, I do have to go and pick my wife up from her night out. So let's just give it one more. Let's build the model. Give it a test. And what I'll do then is I'll just do a little bit of work off stream so that when we join next time in episode 5, that we get at least to see it working. But we're kind of getting there. Also off stream, I'll also build the response JSON. Okay, so let's go forward. I'm pretty sure it won't work, but this is all part of learning how to do all this. Alexa, ask live coders, tell me about NoopCat.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere now. So I'm pretty pleased with that. It said new cat, but I think NoopCat is pretty difficult. So let's try something else. Alexa, ask live coders, tell me about C# Fritz.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Tell me about the dark. Wow. I won't do too much off stream. Don't worry about that. I think doing something about the response JSON, which took an awful long time to do that today. So it's probably best if I do that off stream. Also, I'll just have a fiddle around here, but I won't make any kind of coding changes other than perhaps the JSON part. So don't worry, you won't. I don't intend to be magic going on off stream. Let's try once more and see what we can do. CodeRush. We'll try CodeRush. Alexa, ask live coders, tell me about CodeRush.
Corduroy is a textile
Corduroy.
with a distinct pattern, a caudal whale.
It's disappointing me now. The first attempt was quite good. Alexa, ask live coders, tell me about CodeRush.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
So I think we're getting there. Tell me about code. So it's starting to pick the words up. I think I need to just do a little bit of tweaking on the sample utterance and also on the sample slot values. So I am going to have to call it a day for the stream, a little bit earlier than I wanted to, but it seems like everything's finished over at the theatre where my wife is. Now, thank you to everyone who followed today. We got up to 42, so an extra 10 follows, or 9 or 10 follows today. That is fantastic. I'm really, really pleased by that. Now, to continue talking about this problem and this piece of software, you can join me over on my Discord. We also talk about space things over there, and board games. But yeah, there's the Discord. Now the code will appear on GitHub, and here's a link to my GitHub. Previous projects are on there, and also the bot, which is running in the chat, is also over there. One thing I do want to draw everyone's attention to: we do have a launches command, which is a command we wrote on the test streams that before episode 1, the episode 0 streams. This needs some work, but if you are into space things, I'd like you to take notice of the very first launch on the list there, which is SpaceX Demo 1, which is due to launch at the weekend. In the UK, it's about 10 minutes to 8 in the morning, and this will be the first launch of the Dragon 2 Crew capsule from SpaceX up to the ISS. So ISS, sorry, not IIS. So that's a really exciting kind of development, and if you're interested in space at all, I do suggest you at least tune in for the replays of that over on the SpaceX website. That's going to be fantastic if it doesn't get scrubbed. You can follow me on Twitter. Now, I am a complete noob on Twitter, so I do have a Twitter account at Codebase Alpha. If you want to follow me, and I will give you advanced warning of streams, and also when I post videos, because all the videos will be archived up to YouTube, and there's a link to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much to everyone for watching. It was wonderful to have the raids, wonderful to have all the follows, and those of you who kind of lasted until this point in the stream, waded through all that JSON stuff. Congratulations. I will see you again soon. We will continue with this. As I say, I won't do too much off stream, just maybe just some of the more boring bits. We've been through how to do the JSON, and it'll be basically more of the same. And I will go through what I've done when we start again. So until then, if you're in the UK, have a very good night. Elsewhere in the world, have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.